Hello guys and gals, Bored now, here with you for another list video, and this is going to be the start of my top 50 science fiction movies countdown. My top 50 favourite, and that word favourite is crucial. So you can always debate about overall quality, you can always debate, well, this is a great film, but lists are personal. It's about what they mean to the person. It's about what people get out of them individually. And, there's some films which, arguably are not as good as others in terms of, filmmaking and various things. But they just do more for me personally. So this is going to be part 1 of 5. I'm going to literally do 10 movies per video. And I'm going to go 50 to 1. Obviously, this video will be 50 to 41. So I'm going to do it like that. I'm going to spread it out a bit, and maybe it'll give some of you a chance to think about your own lists. If you've got as many as 50, then please post them. You could follow along, so you could post like 50 to 41 on this video, or just post the top 10, something like that if you want. Just let me know what your favourite sci-fi movies are. So this is something I've been doing on my radio show, my local community station, which we literally just completed last night. So some of you might already know some of this list. It's the same list, but I thought I'd do it for the YouTube channel and maybe give a bit more detail on some of the films. Obviously not as many. Well, there isn't really time restrictions on doing it here on YouTube. So, yeah, that's what it is. And I will do this for other genres as well. I'll definitely do a top 50 horror movies as well. I'll also do, maybe top 50 from certain decades, starting most recently and then working my way backwards. So lots of lists forthcoming, including in the coming days I'll be doing my top 20 television shows of the last 10 years, and that will be followed not too long after that by my top 20 movies of the last decade. So some lists to look forward to. But I'm going to get into it now. This is obviously, as I said, 50 to 41. And I might mention some honourable mentions along the way. It's always interesting, the sci-fi genre. I think one of the things I love about it is the fact that it's so diverse. There's just so many things you don't think of as sci-fi. And then when someone points them out to you, you think, well, of course, yeah, of course that's sci-fi. It is a really diverse genre that way, and a very interesting genre. I think it goes without saying some of the most groundbreaking and visionary films are from the sci-fi genre. But I feel like I've got a good mixture of films in this. I think I've got some that are really fun, some that are, really visually stunning. There's some adventurous films, there's some really dark films in there, some quite bleak films. So I think I've got a variety to try and fit all tastes. But anyway, I'm rambling a bit. So I'll get to my number 50. And my number 50 is one I might have to defend a little bit to people. It is Dune. The David Lynch Dune, of course. This is from 1984. Comes from the very famous science fiction novel by Frank Herbert, who it's a notoriously hard to adapt novel. I know there's been suggestions of maybe doing it in a TV format, so like a mini series or, in many parts. And, honestly, I think it is more suited to that than maybe a film. Now, we know that this year we've got the Denis Villeneuve film coming, his version of Dune, which looks promising, and he did do a really good job with the Blade Runner sequel, or I thought he did anyway, and he's pretty red hot right now. Arrivals was very good, Prisoners I really liked, and I haven't seen that many of his films, but he's on a bit of a row with his Villeneuve, so there are big hopes pinned on to his new version of Dune, but this is David Lynch's version from the 80s. It's much maligned version, and I mean, first thing to say, it is his weakest film. There's no doubt about that. To me, it is. There's a lot of flaws in it. I'm not going to say any different. Now, a lot of people will know the story, but I mean, in case you don't, there are factors to do with that, and one of them is the fact that Herbert was, a bit of a pain in the arse on the set. He was sort of too full on, too hands on, and there was a lot of politicking on that set, which sort of led to Lynch, not making the film he wanted to make ultimately, and the film as a result, I think part of the mess of the film is to do with maybe some of the meddling. I mean, that's my opinion. Now, I think it's interesting that David Lynch didn't do really any other sci-fi after this. Some of you might know that he was attached to do one of the Star Wars sequels, which I think was Return of the Jedi. And as someone who's a big David Lynch fan, I would have loved to have seen what he did with Return of the Jedi, which frankly is the weakest of that original trilogy anyway, so he probably would have improved it surely. But anyway, I mean, it's one of those what if type stories. It would have been great to have seen a David Lynch Star Wars film, but at the time I think he decided it wasn't for him. I think he decided, because he's always shied away from a lot of attention, a lot of mainstream like publicity, so I think that was his main reason for turning it down. But yeah, I am going to defend Dune. It is a very flawed film. As I said, it is Lynch's weakest film. But there's still stuff in there. I think visually it still looks really impressive. He does create this fascinating world on screen. You get the Brian Eno like prog rock sort of score, which is really full on, really exciting, and it brings a lot of energy to it. So stuff like that, there's good stuff in there. You've got a pretty good cast, Kyle MacLachlan. You've got sort of quite a young Patrick Stewart, pre-Star Trek, although kind of he's one of those actors, he kind of looks the same even when he's young. I guess it's just having the bald head, but pretty solid cast. And then there's Sting. I have to add that, and then there's Sting. But anyway, there's good stuff in it, but there's dark moments. It is flawed. It is a bit of a mess. There's moments that just come across as just quite silly and fall flat on the big screen. And maybe they're just issues to do with the book and it being adapted to screen. Maybe it was always going to be hard for those problems or those moments to really make the transition to the screen. I can't comment on the book. I've never read it. I mean, I might give it a go at some point. It doesn't particularly interest me, but who knows? I mean, until I've tried it, I don't know. But Dune, yeah, David Lynch's Dune is very misunderstood. I'd say it's about a 6 out of 10, maybe a 7 out of 10. So it is lower down on the Lynchian scale. But I'm such a big Lynch fan. Really, I had to try and get a film of his on a list. And this is obviously the one that counts for Sci-Fi. And I think it's underrated. I don't think it's the Turkey people give it credit, or people not good. That's a Freudian slip. They don't give it credit at all. It's not the Turkey many people make out. Same as Fire Walk With Me. Over time, Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me has been reassessed, reevaluated. It was kicked around town at the time, and now a lot of people have come around to it, and maybe one day that'll happen with Dune. I mean, I think Dune's pretty underrated. Now, I guess one honourable mention I could have had was Eraserhead, the Lynch film, his debut film. And I considered that there's certainly sci-fi elements in there because, of course, you have like the alien um, and the space stuff. But overall, I decided that it wasn't enough of a sci-fi movie to make the list. But I've gone with Dune for my number 50. So let me know what you think of Dune in the comments below. I'll be happy to have a discussion about it. My number 49, gone for something a bit different, a bit more, well, Dune's very campy in a way, but this is a bit more light-hearted, let's say, and that is Fantastic Voyage from 1966. So it's a real sort of fun throwback movie. It's this great little concept where you get a crew and a submarine, and they're shrunken down to miniature size so that they go inside this like this soldier's body. So it's like this sort of condensed sort of mission. It's like this really sort of fun little idea that they play with throughout. You've got a great cast of character actors, always good seeing Donald Pleasance on screen. You've got Raquel Welch in that particular outfit, delighting the teenage boys. It is kind of one of those quite tongue-in-cheek movies. It's pretty camp, and that's kind of the feel for the time. But it actually does work. The drama of it works. It's a nice little concept. You get some tense little scenes as they're moving through the body, and that they have to do various things. There's certain, pressure moments, when they're approaching like the heart or the, certain body parts. And for the era, and even now, it looks pretty good. Obviously, like now, they could probably improve on it in many ways, but it's It was a nice little concept. It's a nice little watch. It's a comfort sort of viewing in a way. I remember watching it on my birthday a couple of years ago, and just relaxing, enjoying it. You can imagine it being one of those fun Sunday afternoon family get-together type movies. So that's Fantastic Voyage from 1966. That's my number 49. My number 48, it's back to the 80s. It's back to 1984. And another kind of forgotten gem. This is Night of the Comet from 1984. So this film, it can be found on Netflix in the UK. I think it can even be found on YouTube. And this film is partly, important because actually it was a big influence on Joss Whedon creating the Buffy Summers character. He has cited this film as that sort of inspiration. And so it's sort of quite a basic premise. A meteor strikes the comet, I guess, strikes the Earth, and then it either wipes everyone out, or the ones that aren't wiped out, they become zombies. So then they become a threat to the remaining humans, and there's like this group of 4 humans who are the survivors, and they're obviously tasked with surviving and saving the Earth and that sort of thing. So it's this very simple sort of survival type premise. It has a very nice sort of retro look to it. There's some really fleshy and fun creature designs, nicely written characters, and their interaction back and forth. It just feels like one of those cool sort of 80s films that sadly we don't get anymore. It's really simple, but there's the charm to it, and really enjoyed how tongue-in-cheek the whole thing was. It's a romp, basically, and it's a really fun romp. So, pretty underrated, really worth checking out if you've never seen it. And that is Night of the Comet. That's 48. And my number 47, and this one might get me some hate in the comments for how low it is, but it's a biggie. It's Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope from 1977, to give it its full title. So Star Wars is an odd one for me. I sort of go back and forth on it. I mean, I loved these movies as kids, as or as a kid, sorry, as most kids do. Then as I grew up, I became a bit more cynical and wasn't so much into it. And I did fight it for a long time. I think I've come around a bit more recently, like when I've rewatched it and I've enjoyed it. I mean, obviously, the original trilogy for many people holds up very well to this day. And I would agree with that. I mean, definitely Return of the Jedi is the weakest of the three. And then I think it's debatable which is the best, either A New Hope or Empire. It's been a long time since I've seen Empire, so I would have to rewatch it to make up my mind on that. But there's a strong case for either. And then there's a debate. I mean, a lot of even diehards Star Wars fans hate the prequels, so I mean, in my opinion, they're three of the worst movies ever made. And then, people are divided on the more recent films. Overall, I'm positive on them. You can find my review of Rise of the Skywalker, the latest, on this channel. That was a disappointment, but the other two I actually liked a lot, actually. So it did sort of bring it back around for me. But getting on to Star Wars A New Hope from the original film. It's one of those films that it's not perfect, but I think when it works, it really works. And it obviously reinvented the wheel for what sci-fi can be and for what a sci-fi like epic sort of space adventure can be. The special effects for the time were out of this world, and I think even today they stand up really, really well. And a lot of the appeal is the three lead characters, Luke, Han Solo, and Princess Leia, the late Carrie Fisher. And they just have this fantastic chemistry. They all bring something different to the mix, and they just sort of bounce off each other very well. You're really invested in those characters. I think it is the space adventure aspect which is exciting. Obviously, there's sort of interesting ideas in there as well. You've got some good comic relief with people like C-3PO and R2 and their sort of odd couple type relationship. So the original film is very enjoyable. It's very exciting. I mean, the music is just iconic every time you hear it. I don't think it's perfect. I think, I think there are bits that drag for me. I'm not so into like the whole Jedi mythology and the kind of portentous, Shakespearean speeches. They just bore me dead, but it still holds up well, the original. It's still a really entertaining romp. And I won't say much because there may or may not be more Star Wars on my list. I'm not going to reveal that, folks. But anyway, Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope is my number 47. You can fight me on the placing in the comments. 46, I've gone back to the kind of B-movie, kind of entertaining, fun, retro type film. And that is Terror Vision, which is another film I've reviewed on the channel. I did it for Halloween, and I'll probably put that link in the description. But this film is one of those little 80s gems. It's an absolute blast. So again, simple premise, a bunch of aliens transported to Earth through like a TV aerial. They crash land into like the household of like this rich sort of like quite obnoxious sort of yuppie couple, and there is like this particular monster, and there's this whole sort of like jokes about the fact that they don't, you get like the aliens who are still on their planet warning people, then a danger is coming, and that this isn't a joke. And the joke is that they just think it's like a TV broadcast, which is brilliant. But it's a film, I like it because on the one hand it's very trashy and entertaining, and it does have that sort of kind of so bad it's good thing. But I think it's a little more knowing than that, and I think also it does have a true charm to it, a true sort of wit, and it feels very much like an 80s film, not just because of the practical effects and obviously a lot of the unforgettable fashion moments, but it also feels very 80s because the kids are the heroes in it. The kids are very proactive. Over the course of the film, they really grow and they bond. And it's kind of the adults who are the idiots. And it's quite an interesting direction they go in with, like the alien. Again, really fun, scrungy, gross out sort of alien effect. Really nicely done. And the cast are pretty solid as well, and you get this really addictive sort of theme tune, which is, it's sort of like a cross between Susie and the Banshees and Kate Bush, but a little more cheesy. I've watched TerrorVision a couple of times now. It's another one you can view for free on YouTube if you've not seen it. But I'll post my review in the description part of this video. But I love TerrorVision. It's a blast. If you enjoyed those sort of throwback 80s style B-movie horror / sci-fi, it's a blast. I think you'll really enjoy it. That's TerrorVision from 1986. My number 45, and this is quite fitting because of me mentioning Fantastic Voyage, it's Inner Space from 1987. So this is a Joe Dante adventure film. And I mean, I guess it's not a complete remake, but there is a similar sort of plot to Fantastic Voyage. So there's kind of experiments going on, and you have the Dennis Quaid. I always get it whether it's Dennis or Randy, but no, it is Dennis Quaid. He's like this brash sort of Han Solo-esque sort of pilot. And they're sort of doing this experiments with sort of shrinking him down, and he's in this sort of syringe, and basically it all goes wrong because like this group of like I don't know what you call them, but this group sort of breaks into the lab because they want the technology, and it becomes this big sort of confusion. I mean, to get from A to B is a bit contrived, but whatever, it's the setup. And then one thing leads to the other, and the syringe ended up getting injected into Martin Short, or the character played by Martin Short, who's unbeknownst to what's going on. He's in a mall at the time, and there's this kind of shootout. And I think like the doctor or something injects it into him as a way to keep it from the bad guys, essentially. So obviously he doesn't know at first. He's obviously really freaked out, as you would be. Then there's a voice coming from inside him, and it's like, obviously the Quaid character in this whatever you call it, like aircraft. And then they slowly sort of bond, and obviously the villains are then pursuing Martin Short to try and get hold of this thing. And it's a whole thing, and you get a subplot with Meg Ryan. She's the other lead of the film because she's sort of like a girlfriend of the Martin Short, not the Martin, the Dennis Quaid. I almost said Randy. Dennis Quaid character. So that's the setup, and it is a really fun adventure. They do really something fantastic with the concept. The effects are pretty good for the 80s. They're as good as I think you're going to get when you're doing this sort of plot. But it is more about, as I was saying with Star Wars, the appeal is more about the character interactions and the banter. There's a lot of, really smart jokes. I love the one in the doctor surgery where, the Martin Short character still doesn't know what's going on, and the doctor is kind of going through these possibilities, and he's like, oh no, and he shouts out, I'm possessed, I'm possessed. I just love that scene. It's fantastic. I mean, Martin Short is a really great physical comedian, and he's just brilliant in this film. All three of the leads are really, really good. There's a good chemistry going on. And I do like the sort of the relationship that builds between the Martin Short character and the Meg Ryan character. It's really charming. And you forget what a hot sort of actress, what a up and coming actress Meg Ryan was. I mean, she did have that very connectable, really engaging girl next door type vibe. Not just attractive, but a lot of charisma as well. She was very likable, good comic timing, a really sort of sharp performer when she was at her best, when she was getting these really sort of fun little roles. And all three of the leads are really good, and there's some fun supporting characters. I quite enjoy the character of Linda, which is kind of this quite shallow, obnoxious, but quite funny and cute in a way, like co-worker of the short character who has a bit of a crush on him, and he does her initially, but that sort of changes over the course of the film. But she's a really funny little supporting character, and it's a lot of fun. It's a nice, easy watch. I'm not going to say it's Joe Dante's best film. He has done better, of course, but I always enjoy watching Inner Space. So that's my number 45. My number 44 is maybe the best film from Luc Besson, or certainly one of his best. That is The Fifth Element. So we're going to 1997 now with this film. And it's just this gorgeous sort of Blade Runner-esque type universe. The visuals are just eye-popping. You get some really cheesy but colourful attire on the character, and you just get this very basic little plot, really, with Bruce Willis as like this taxi driver, but of course it's flying taxis, pretty appropriate. Mila Djokovic drops into his, I almost said that, but cab, and fun and angst ensue, really, because they have to try and find this mythical like diamond stone, whatever the term may be. And I think it's just a lot of fun, really. It's just a really visually stunning film. I think there's good characters. I think it's kind of one of those wacky, off the wall Besson type films, and I think he does that well. I think there's enough of a vision to the film, but it's never taking itself too seriously. It does feel like a fun romp, a fun adventure. And I think when Bruce Willis was motivated and when he was put in the right role, as he is in this film, I think he is engaging in those type of roles. He does have good comic timing. That's been proven in a lot of films. And he has a presence, but he's more of this everyman. He doesn't feel like this untouchable type actor, a bit like Arnie or Stallone sort of thing. I mean, at his best, that's part of the appeal of Die Hard. He is this sort of every-time man. So I enjoy The Fifth Element a lot. It's really good fun. So The Fifth Element is my number 44. My number 43, we're jumping back and forth in time here, so we're jumping back in time. It is The Quatermass and the Pit from 1967. So this is a British classic. It's all set around like an alien spacecraft crash landing into the London Underground. And let's be honest, who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want to be on the London Underground and to just see this? So this is another retro type movie. There's a lot of fun to be had. It's really impressive sets. This kind of very quirky sort of concept, but it plays with a lot of different themes. It is very tongue-in-cheek. I think it's more tongue-in-cheek than probably the other Quatermass film, which is The Quatermass Experiment. I think that was a more serious sort of atmospheric type film. But this does have good ideas, but it's a charming little film. It feels like sort of typically quite British in the best possible way. It's one I enjoy a lot. So I keep saying that. It's on my list, of course I enjoy it. Quatermass and the Pit from 1967 is my 43. and we're getting close to the end of this part. My number 42, something completely different. It is Tatsuo, the Iron Man. This is from the late 80s, and there's a couple of sequels as well. This is an absolute cult gem. It's this really bizarre little movie about a guy who's the Iron Man of the title. He's a metal fetishist of all things, folks, and he's so in love with it. He ends up, he gets a gash on his leg or his arm, whichever body part, and he ends up getting metal inside it, and slowly he mutates and he metamorphosizes into the Iron Man of the title. He's overcome with metal, and he turns into this scary, machine-like guy who's just out of control. So it's like the perfect metaphor for, kind of like machinery or technology just overtaking the body, and the almost like the anxiety and the hyper masculinity sort of thing. But beyond that, it's just a fun, balls to the wall sort of film, very stripped down, all shot in black and white. And the black and white just makes sense. I can't imagine it being in colour. It's got this unique sort of soundtrack, really, where it's just a series of like metallic sort of squeaks and little noises. It's almost like a heavy metal soundtrack, but just being played as if it's like, literally metal being scraped or something. It's absolutely glorious. It's full on. It's exciting. It's creepy. It's scary. It's brilliantly directed. Great practical effects. Again, there's some like it's a really fascinating twist on a body horror. Really gross, but in the most enjoyable little way. And it romps along. It's a very short film. It just romps along and is fantastic. It's a cult gem. I remember freaking the life out of my brother on Christmas morning one year with it. I taped it. It was on late on Film 4 one night. I taped it. I watched it the next morning, and he gave me dirty looks. But hey, what can you do? What can you do? He was the Grinch, folks. That's all I'll say. So there you have it. So that's Tatsuo, the Iron Man. I'll just spell that for you if you want to look up this gem of Japanese cinema. It's Tetsuo, and then the Iron Man. Tatsuo, the Iron Man. It's my number 42, my number 41, and the last film on this video. It's The Iron Giant from 1999, so gone for a more family-friendly choice now. This is, of course, the animation from the Ted Hughes book, children book, and it has, pretty solid voice cast. Jennifer Aniston, Harry Connick Jr.'s in there. Vin Diesel in an early role actually voices the Iron Giant of the robot of the title, so solid little cast there. And it's an absolute joy. It's really delightful. You've got really beautiful animation, very simple animation in a way, but it's really effective. I mean, it's one of those where I think if they went a bit overboard with the animation, if they tried too hard with it, it might wreck it. I think it's the simplicity, and it is very cinematic. It really plays out. It does prestige a lot of like classic cinema, like noir sort of thing, or the kind of monster movies of the past, like Godzilla or King Kong. It's a delightful film. It's very charming. You really care about the relationship between the boy and the robot. Very well directed by Brad Bird. One of his early films. I'm not sure if it was his first one, but certainly one of his early ones. And I think one of the best animations of recent years, which is saying something because the standard is really great nowadays, but also one of the best family films of recent years. They just don't do family films like this anymore, really, or very rarely. So yeah, it's a charming film. Really good animation. Really, if you've never seen it, check it out. It's The Iron Giant, which is my number 41. And that brings me to the end of this video, the end of part 1 of my top 50 sci-fi movies. So on the next video, I will do the next 10. I'll do 40 to 31. So I'll just run down the 10 I've just done in case you missed any of them. So they were, at number 50 I had Dune, the David Lynch Dune. 49, Fantastic Voyage. 48 was Night of the Comet. 47, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. 46, Terror Vision. 45, Joe Dante's Inner Space. 44, Luc Besson's The Fifth Element. 43, The Quatermass and the Pit from 1967. 42 was Tetsuo the Iron Man, and 41, I just did it, the Iron Giant. So the next 10 will be following in the coming days, but this has been part 1 of my sci-fi top 50 countdown. As I said earlier, get involved in the comments, comment on any of my picks, but you can also give me your own picks as well if you feel like it. Let me know some of your favourite science fiction movies. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you're new to the channel, and more lists things on the way in the coming days. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.